Great. So I just want to take a few minutes to try to bring some of this back to EA a little bit and thinking of it from an EA perspective. So where are we? Oh, there we go. Okay. So in thinking a little bit about how we ought to be thinking about this in EA, one of the things that we do know, and we saw presentations of technology that's across multiple data streams, and we see all the different kinds of data streams that we may deal with in our clinical practice and in our trials. In general, these data streams tend to live in individual silos, and part of that's necessary because the technology is very advanced in the amount of effort it takes within each data stream to figure out the technology, the analytic technology, and create a pipeline is pretty substantial and tends to take a lot of focus, and we tend to live in these individual data streams. One of the things that we thought about day one when we started to think about ECOG-ACRIN, and this is a diagram that I lifted off of the first ECOG-ACRIN NCTN grant that we wrote, and this is now about 7-8 years ago. Bob Comis loved this slide, and this is a slide showing what we wanted to do, what we intended to do as a group, and that's to try to bring these data streams together from our trials and develop advanced analytics to try to both better understand and characterize patients and better predict what their outcomes are. And to some extent, we've started to build that data infrastructure. This is data infrastructure that exists in the ACR that we've been using for some of our studies called DART. In fact, I don't even know what the DART stands for anymore. Data Archive and Research Toolkit, I think is what it stands for. But it allows our triad system, which can collect images, and I think could even be used to collect pathologic images if we package them up right, as well as clinical data and other data into a cloud-based system that then we can provide access to other users to analyze those images. You can see we've got a number of our trials already existing in DART. With multi-stream imaging in them that we can make available for folks to start to do some analysis. We've used them internally for our purposes. And the other thing that we can do is this is built in a way that we can actually put pipelines, analysis pipelines into the system itself. So you can either download the data or you can put certain analysis pipelines into the data, into the DART system itself, and actually do the analysis within DART and don't even need to take the data outside if one didn't want to, and we've got some examples that we've been able to use this. So we've started to realize this vision that we had in the first image that we put in the first grant that we put together, and we're going to be posting some of the match data this way, make it available to our radiomics working group, both the pathology data, the imaging data, and some of the other clinical and genomics data. We've been doing some of this multi-modality and multi-stream integration, and just to show some examples of what this might look like. This is a radiomic pipeline, much the way you've seen, where you segment a tumor, you develop radiomic features, and then you can imagine that you take those radiomic features and you analyze them in conjunction with a bunch of clinical features, in this laboratory features. In this case, this is ctDNA work, and so these are the driver allele fraction, number of mutations, you've got some clinical data, and then you can start to build multi-modality models to predict outcomes. And you can see you'll need a lot of data to do this effectively, not a ton of data yet, so the p-values are sort of so-so, but you can start to look at how the different data streams relate to each other in predicting outcome, and this is some of the kind of work that we want to do. In fact, we've done some of this in EA. This is work by Anat Matabushi, looking at some pathomics combined with the oncotype genomics in one of our studies, E2197, showing that the combined model does better than either of the other models together. And this is the kind of work that we're looking to do. The other thing that we can start to do is to start to look at exploring data across studies. And things like traditional toxicity, financial toxicity, some of the cardio-oncology work that we want to do, patient-reported outcomes, which we're collecting now across studies. How do we start to analyze it? We tend to think within studies. We want to ask questions across studies of this data as we collect it. Now, I will say when we think of patient-reported outcome, we've got a unique tool that we've developed, this EasyPro tool. And what EasyPro allows us to do is that we can get patients an account on EasyPro, and we can directly interact with the patients, and they can enter their data directly into our database. And we don't necessarily need CRAs to be asking them questions, recording their data, and putting it in the database. This is having them directly relate to us. And this patient-reported data is a very, I think, important part of some of our strategy going forward. I think as we look going forward, we're going to start to look at a couple of different ways of collecting data, and we've heard some of this today. This idea of patient-reported data and how far we can push that, both in terms of patients can in addition to reporting their PROs, can report things that they can measure, like we've got one study where we're looking for patients to enter blood pressures. We can have them enter information about smoking history and habits. We can have them potentially even look into their medical record portal and give us some of their medical data through a patient-reported data collection system. We can do some follow-up data and document patients, being alive potentially through this kind of aspect. So we want to think about expanding our patient-reported data component. The other thing is we talk about, and we heard a lot about getting data directly out of the medical record, the idea of trying to structure some of the medical record data, creating some common data elements that we map that to, and be able to extract it directly out of the medical record is another way that we want to start to look at collecting data. And we talked about some pilots last night about doing this, and I think this is something that we'd like everybody to bring to their committees and think about carefully. We've heard a lot about this earlier today. Obviously, we've got a lot of collaborative opportunities between other groups working with industry and working between our data and other databases where we've got patients in common between CMS databases, insurance databases, and others. And we want to look to see how, we saw how in the UK data bank that they're really clever at doing that. We don't have the same kind of data resources. We don't have a national health system, but we do have some data resources that we may be able to take advantage of and cross our data with and work on how to deal with the fact that it's not a one-to-one correspondence. We'll have some missing data. So I just want to, sum up with really what I think are some unique opportunities for ECOG-ACRIN. We've got a rich data collection and management infrastructure where we can take data in a number of ways, including traditional, clinical case report forms. And we can take data from multiple data streams, from imaging data and others. And I think this is a real advantage that we have that we need to think about leveraging going forward. We've got a network of research sites, and we've got to work with them and empower them perhaps to participate in some of these more novel data collection modalities. We've got a multidisciplinary research community with a large data science community as well, and something we need to leverage strongly. We've got strong industry relations in terms of working collaboratively with industry on some of these studies. We also, frankly, are a little unique in that we've got large population screening studies. We've got a 165,000 patient study that we're taking on, which gives us really unique opportunities to collect data from large populations. And we've got unique expertise and infrastructure for patient-reported outcome and now patient-reported data. So I really think that as a group, we're really poised in this area. I want to thank all the speakers today because it's been a phenomenal day. I learned an incredible amount. And hopefully that we've energized the group. And I know a number of folks have already gone to their committee meetings, which started about 30 minutes ago, unfortunately. But for those that are here and have committee meetings to go to yet, bring this energy and excitement to the committee meetings. And we look forward to a great meeting and integrating some of these concepts into the work we do.